Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much. I welcome your remarks this morning, and good morning, members and everyone in the room and those watching online. As you've mentioned, as we approach the end of the calendar year, I've been reflecting on the recent past, and Tuesday just gone, the 4th of November, marked the 24th anniversary of the formation of the Police Service of Northern Ireland. And as I reflect on today's challenges and begin the planning to mark next year's 25-year milestone, I think it's worth taking stock of celebrating the remarkable transformation that's occurred in policing, which has taken place in Northern Ireland. Policing has undoubtedly been one of the key success stories of the peace process, and the Pattern Report still underpins policing today. Through Pattern, policing has been through huge reform that other public sectors have not. With the financial place the PSNI now finds itself in, I'm sure next year's anniversary will provide us all with an opportunity to give us a school report on where we are with regards to the support the organisation receives. The legacy of our past remains a deeply personal and defining issue for many in our communities. The recently announced legacy framework brings renewed hope for victims and for families who've waited far too long for information and resolution. If the recently announced legacy framework is to succeed and victims are to receive a process they can trust, it must be supported through additional dedicated funding as part of a whole systems approach by Westminster. It strikes me that we're at a policing crossroads following the impact of the devolution of policing in 2010. Since that date, for a myriad of reasons, critical failures have occurred in the provision of mainstream funding for policing. Additionally, and equally as impactful, is the failure by Westminster to fund the PSNI to address the consequences that we inherited from the Troubles. This is almost a perfect storm to the detriment of policing in Northern Ireland. Currently, as we've already mentioned in previous meetings, we have in excess of 1,100 Troubles-related civil cases, almost 200 murders that do not come within the criteria of the legacy legislation. And we're also now to be required to service a number of legacy inquests. The ongoing costs of servicing legacy, as you know, is £24 million a year. This can be expected to rise dramatically, yet the UK government continues to fail to accept fiscal responsibility for these issues. Additionally, legacy-related public inquiries rely on the PSNI providing information and this brings further unfunded pressures. The Omer inquiry currently is estimated to be costing £15 million to the PSNI, and the Finucane inquiry will be in excess, we believe, of £20 million. I wholeheartedly support the need for proper and meaningful disclosure to families in such cases. Our historical approach to legacy has held society back, and in the absence of financial provision for the PSNI to service these legacy structures, yet again, I feel there will be delay, frustration, and errors are likely to occur. We have so few resources to deal with these issues. I'm certain the lack of funding is a strategic oversight rather than a malign intent to delay these mechanisms from making the progress families deserve. But I would not be surprised if families fear that that is deliberate. The resources I have managing these legacy issues and the significant costs associated with settling civil cases are, as we know, not funded. These are the resources and funding that should be going into policing Northern Ireland today. The net result of this lack of planning means that legacy families are still being failed, and this drain on our budget means society has less policing today and is less safe than it should be. When will those with the power to change this start to listen? I again ask the board and thank the board to continue to lobby Westminster on this issue. I do realise Northern Ireland ministers have wickedly challenging funding dilemmas. However, policing has been left behind other major public services. We now need to be prioritised in the way others have been. We have much smaller budgetary requirements. Our achievements in maintaining a reasonable service with significant efficiencies have evidently counted against us when fiscal decisions have been taken. Funding decisions taken since 2010 as regards the PSNI have driven policing from an era of optimism, hopefulness and proactivity in policing a society emerging from conflict to a police service that is predominantly reactive with a workforce that is frankly exhausted. A workforce, to remind you, that is circa 2,000 police officers and 500 staff below where numbers should be, and which cannot keep people safe as they and you want us to. 1 year ago, I highlighted to this board challenges of financial uncertainty, historically low officer and staff numbers, workforce morale, and the urgent need to address violence against women and girls and hate crime. While there has been some progress, the same risks identified 12 months ago continue to shape the reality of policing in Northern Ireland today. That we've managed to continue to police Northern Ireland so effectively is frankly a policing miracle and is entirely down to an incredible workforce and their ongoing discretionary effort. However, the workforce has been pushed beyond its limits and decisions now have to be made by the executive in favour of policing as they have been promised publicly in recent months. Protecting women and girls from violence and harm remains one of the most urgent priorities for policing in Northern Ireland. The scale of the problem, I need to remind you, is staggering, with 55 reports made to police every day with regards to violence against women and girls. And those are just the ones we're told about. We know so many of these incidents go unreported. This is the tip of the iceberg. The true problem is far beyond even those worrying figures. Our focus remains on preventing harm, relentlessly pursuing offenders, and building an organisation in which women and girls in our communities and in our workforce can have absolute confidence. This week, I joined colleagues at two outstanding events hosted by partners including PwC, Women's Aid and the Irish Football Association. These events sought to raise awareness of violence against women and girls, build understanding of the drivers of this harm and educate young people to spot and challenge toxic behaviour. I'll continue to promote the need for both organisational and public awareness on this threat. Everyone needs to understand the threat to society of violence against women and girls. Between the 1st of January of 2019 and the 31st of July of this year, 36 women and girls across Northern Ireland were tragically killed by men. This is unacceptable, and entering the 4th year of our dedicated action plan, we are not complacent in our efforts to make society a safer and more inclusive place. Imagine that we lost 36 lives to terrorism in that same period, what the outcry would be. Violence against women and girls is not only a profound societal issue, it also carries economic consequences. According to the strategic framework to end violence against women and girls, the estimated economic cost of domestic and sexual violence in Northern Ireland ranges from 730 million to £1 billion annually. To ensure our internal approach becomes as good as it can possibly be, as you know, I've commissioned an independent review of our response to domestic violence, violence against women and girls and misogyny, led by Rachel Langdale KC. This will provide a thorough examination of our relationships with partners and our processes, and also of our culture. The report examines how we work with those partners and the voluntary sector, and crucially will report on our performance with regards to violence against women and girls as we enter the 4th year of our strategy. It will examine internal culture and attitudes towards misogyny. This commissioning demonstrates our determination to get this right, and that we are to be held to the highest of standards. Misogyny will not be tolerated. I expect parts of the report will be uncomfortable, but it will be invaluable in developing the next phase of our violence against women and girls strategy. Holding a mirror up and welcoming external independent scrutiny is what the very best of organisations do. Those who quietly accept the status quo and shy away from difficult issues, such as tackling this, let their workforce and society down. I very much welcome, as you referenced, Chair, the recent launch of the Board's consultation on the revised PSNI Code of Ethics, and want to encourage participation from anyone with an interest in policing. This is an opportunity to shape the standards that guide our work. The revised code is the most comprehensive update for 20 years and sets the standards of behaviour and accountability that we expect across the service. In particular, it reinforces areas such as the duty of candour, a principle to which I attach considerable importance, conflicts of interest, misogyny and inappropriate relationships, and the use of social media. Our workforce remains our greatest asset, and organisational morale remains a key focus. This past year has seen the continued growth of our Team PSNI events, strengthening of our shared identity, and reinforcing a culture of pride across all roles and ranks. The reconvened Long Service Good Conduct Award ceremonies have continued. Hosting the latest ceremony in October was a privilege and an opportunity to recognise the dedication and exemplary commitment of officers and staff. You will be aware through a leaked letter that I've written personally to the Secretary of the Treasury to ask that he reconsider his decision not to permit a call on Treasury reserves to fund the data breach liability. I will continue lobbying in that regard in every way that I can. My letter, as it has now been leaked, also sets out some of the additional funding challenges and support for the PSNI over recent years. I welcome the strong engagement we experienced in the recent inclusion survey, with just over 50% of officers and staff taking part. This response level is incredibly positive, and I keenly await the detailed findings, which will be made available to the Board and will be made public. The PSNI continues to deliver strong results for the public. We continue to tackle terrorism, disrupt organised crime, bring dangerous offenders before the courts, and safeguard vulnerable victims. And we continue to respond to hate crime and all too often investigate fatal collisions on our roads. During October, we policed 2 high-profile visits. During one of these, it was my honour to introduce the Prince and Princess of Wales to 5 outstanding PSNI officers who've recently been recognised for their courage and their professionalism. Their actions include tackling dangerous and armed suspects both on and off duty, resuscitating a baby when her parents believed the baby had died, and responding to people intent on self-harm and violence because of serious mental health issues. The second event was an internal summit hosted by the UK Foreign Secretary and attended by delegates from across Europe. I'm extremely grateful for the mutual aid provided by colleagues from across the UK policing that ensured both of these policing operations were delivered professionally. In early October, there was some public commentary about PSNI officers operating in support and under the control of the Metropolitan Police in London. Policing is a national effort, and when we can safely do so, we will always try to assist UK colleagues. It's the right thing to do, and to be frank, we are increasingly reliant on support coming the other way. To reassure the Board, mutual aid deployments to GB are usually very short, and the host police service pays full costs. There is a cost in terms of people not being at work here, and we carefully balance each mutual aid decision against our own operational requirements. We continue to make operation decisions under severe financial and resourcing pressure. Even with increased recruitment, police officer numbers are now at 6,247, a further reduction of 83 since last year, and we remain well below the level required to deliver the policing service that you deserve. We project a £23 million shortfall this year, which includes the cost of an anticipated police officer pay award, which must and will be paid. There have been positive indications of support in the forthcoming monitoring rounds towards the recovery business case of £7 million and a provisional first call of £6.7 million as a contribution, which would be 50% towards the police officer pay award. There is no question that officers deserve this award, and for me, this pay award is non-negotiable. It must be paid. As I've mentioned, I'm fully aware of the constrained financial reality facing the Northern Ireland Executive. I have the greatest sympathy for colleagues across the public sector who face financial pressures of their own. PSNI is absolutely committed to playing our part in achieving value for money. Our work on rationalising and reshaping our estates has already yielded a further saving of £4.1 million in this financial year. This easement, together with the expected funding from the monitoring round, will go some way to closing this year's gap. Without sustained investment, policing in Northern Ireland will continue to operate below safe levels, and our ability to respond to calls for service, investigate crime, and protect vulnerable people will be increasingly compromised. The continued support of each of you on the board will be essential in securing the financial stability required to protect policing both now and in the future. And Chair, I'm very happy to take questions.